It was on Pro Football Talk. Vegas has the Arizona Cardinals at number one for being the worst team in the National Football League, and they have the Bucks right there at number two, just ahead of the Houston Texans. What, James Canada? What are they seeing that I'm not? Are my Buccaneer fan glasses just so frosty that I don't see something or a disconnect that should happen with this 2023 Buccaneers team? Or do they really see something that we as fans or followers of this team or people that cover it like you and I do, doing a great job, by the way, to the Big Game Sports Buzz? What does
Appreciate
Vegas
that.
see? No, appreciate you. But what do they see, James? Is there something I don't see here that makes the Buccaneers not even competitive in the NFC South, let alone the entire league?
Well, Ray, it's always easy from the outside looking in to judge when you think there's a lack of movement. And then you look at our team, and I say our because I still feel like I'm part of this Buccaneers team. Um, Salary, cap strap, didn't have a lot of money to make a lot of big moves in the offseason. You lose Tom Brady. So you have unproven quarterback in Kyle Trask, and you sign a journeyman like Baker Mayfield. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to write off a team that people said it was dysfunction and dissension at the ranks with Leftwich being fired, and then they want Todd Bowles gone, right? Um, I say it all the time, and I don't just say this to be, like a homer because I cheer for the Buccaneers. We're in a division that's not great. Yes, to the team that made the most moves this offseason was the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, yeah.
Desmond Ritter still hasn't proved himself as a starting quarterback, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? Like he's going to be okay, I think. But
Yeah.
so I think we're right there in the mix. So for them to put us that far down, but you know what? As a former player, I can tell you as a player, Ray, we like it. We like it when you don't think we're gonna do a whole lot.
I like James because I was prepared tonight to make the comparisons to the teams that you played on from '98 to 2001. Of course, James Canada, former Buccaneer, out of Nevada, out of University of Nevada. I was going to make those comparisons, but I like that you said that because there's been a part of me that's kind of thought, is Peter King, is the National Football or the NFL Network, are they doing us a favor by letting this team get a chip on their shoulder? Because I look at this Buccaneers defense and I still see a lot, and that's why I had to talk with you tonight about this. I still see a lot of players in places that tell me this team should have defensive success for sure in 2023. Of course, predicated upon what that offense under Dave Canales can do.
Yeah, and that's the elephant in the room, right? We know that.
Okay.
Everyone is interested to see what their offense is gonna look like. I've said it a million times, like I can't wait and see, you know, it's gotta prove, we have to prove everyone else wrong. But I believe he's gonna be smart. And I know he wasn't the offensive coordinator in Seattle last year, but what he did as a quarterback coach and working with Geno Smith,
Hmm.
you know how bad Geno Smith was made fun of and talked about in the league up until last football season to
He
become a relevant quarterback.
Yeah, he was known as the guy with the punch in the jaw in the locker room.
Right,
He was
right.
literally a post thought, and we always knew the kid had game. We always knew he could play. But yeah, what they did in 2022, the Seattle Seahawks, and now Geno Smith is their franchise quarterback. I don't want to get too far off the beaten path because I got a lot to cover with you tonight. But
Okay.
what a thing that Seattle did though, getting Geno Smith after trading Russell Wilson and the plethora of picks they got back, Leo Word back from the Denver Broncos, but I like what you say, and we get Cody Mock out of North Dakota State. 'Cause I want to transition to the draft, so I'll start with the offensive side. The offensive
Okay.
lineman Cody Mock, who can play all the way across this offensive line,
All five positions.
and Ryan Jensen. I mean, you couldn't make a better story. Ryan Jensen sees this kid. He's like Ryan Jensen's doppelganger, and immediately Jensen wants to take him under his wing. The Buccaneers' offensive line seems like it's in a pretty good shape, pretty good place. And we got pretty good wide receivers, and we got some second-year tight ends, and of course Rashad White, who we think is actually going to become the guy with a Keyshawn Vaughn and also with a Chase Edmonds. So James, where am I? I want this offense to find itself, but I don't think we're setting ourselves up with a great defense that we can't find success in 2023.
If we can manage the game, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that because it doesn't sound sexy when you say manage a
Manage,
football
yeah.
game. If we can manage the game and not turn the ball over on offense, I like our chances with the defense that we have. That's just how I feel. I mean, not just being a defensive guy. Um,
We are
going out
a great defensive
right,
guy. But okay, go ahead.
going out getting the pieces that you got. Having Levante David back. I believe Devin White's gonna come around and be the ball player that he was the last half of the season, this past season, and things will be great. Antoine Whitfield Jr., if he can just stay healthy, he was banged up last year. The whole secondary was banged up. Carlton Davis was like he's back, ready to go this year. There's a lot to build off of and to be excited about because the thing is, right, you don't know until you know.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: we look at Kalijah Cansey. That guy's a dog, and I mean, what the Bucks do in the first round to get the lineman out of Pitt. But I think a lot of people they thought the jury was back on Logan Hall, of course, Sac Avenue, the first round pick last year out of Houston, or Tryon Shoyinka, who I'm going to stick by you, James. Have you changed? Because I'm 100% still in on this. Is Tryon Shoyinka a double-digit sack player in 2023 with a healthy Shaq Barrett and a deep Bucks defense playing strong?
I think so. I think he can be. I really think that he gets to be the sack man that we thought he could be coming out of Washington. I mean, if you look at some of the things he's did, and he got so close and around the quarterback with a lot of different pressures, he just never got him on the ground. So, and this is the thing: D linemen are judged by sacks, and offensive linemen are judged by sacks they give up, right? And it's not really fair in either case because you can have offensive lineman protect his quarterback the entire game, the last series of the game where it means the most. If he messes up on one play and gives up a sack that changes the outcome, he's a bum and he sucks, right? And here it is, D-line gets out the guy. He's forcing the quarterback up in the pocket. He's forcing him up in the pocket, and his teammates are now getting the sacks. But here it is, late in the game, when it's your time to shine, you finally get there, get a hand on, you come off, you miss the sack, they throw the ball, get the first down, run the clock out, win the game. But this guy's a bust and he sucks. It's an unfair way to judge, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, well, and hey, brother, how you doing? Again, so you're joining Cup of Ray down here at the Saltwater Captain in Nebraska, and the brass captain and the Saltwater Hippie. Great crowd of people. Got a great vibe down here. Just love the vibe down here in Madeira Beach. I'm joined here by James Canada, former Buccaneer, former Indianapolis Colts, corner host of the Big Game Sports Buzz and the Chop Shop. James, do you have one of those hats that you just displayed on your social media the other day? Those new Big Game Sports Buzz hats? Do you got one anywhere close?
Man,
that's okay.
I don't. They're downstairs, man.
They are.
I had it. I sat it down, but yeah,
do you know how long it's been since I saw a merch or a hat and I went, gotta have it, gonna get it. We're gonna go ahead and talk about it here. Love it. Tell everyone, and I'm not getting you out of here. I got a lot to talk about yet, but tell everyone where they can go, not only to find a Big Game Sports Buzz, but also find that merch that you now got, my brother, because I just love it.
On my YouTube page, if you go to Big Game Sports Buzz or actually go to BGSE Network, there's a shop right there where you can get Big Game Sports Buzz entertainment, Big Game Sports Buzz merchandise, and BGSE Network merchandise. I also have a store link that is on my link tree, and this link tree is linktr.ee/BG Sports Buzz, and you can get to my shop on that link as well.
Do you know, I don't know if it's just because we're down and we do shows and I love everything you do, but man, you and Jay Stoggs, you guys got some of the best top fives in the history of top fives. Where do you guys, I got to know, do you guys have, we do, when Peter and I in a Sports Web, we do pre-productions with Harry the Greek and all, but do you guys talk about that, or is it something you guys just say, okay, we're going to do it, this is going to be the subject, and then you don't try to plan it out in advance? Because it seems so organic, but man, it comes off as so entertaining.
No, we talk about it in advance, and we really have to, Ray, because we want to make sure that we have enough time to put that list together. And you think about, if I told you right now, give me your top 5 quarterbacks of all time, you like, all right, cool. But when you start writing that list down, you realize, oh, hold on, there's some good ones I got to leave off of here.
Since you talked about best quarterbacks of all time, somebody asked me today, they told me, without jaded glasses on, not that he did anything to take away from his reputation or his aura or, his body of work, but they said Tom Brady may have done himself a better service if he had just dropped the mic after 2020, after Super Bowl 55. Of course, 2020, we get back, we lose to the Rams. Last season, we bounce out in the first round in the wild card game against the Dallas Cowboys. Could Tom Brady, looking back on it now, not as Bucs fans, we don't want to say, hey, we'll take that guy. We would take him again right now if he decides to, if him and Kim Kardashian want to buy a house here in Tampa Bay and Tom wants to play in 2023, I'm sure Jason Light would at least take that call. But could Tom have bounced out in 2020 and would that have more completed it? Would that have been like a really great ending, or was the ending he had okay just because he was the greatest of all time?
I mean, hindsight is 2020. I mean, because we win the Super Bowl, he goes out a year great. He goes out on top. He decides to come. He decides to come back. We lose against the Rams, and what was a damn good game. He helped get us back in the game. Defense fell short playing a damn cover zero at the end of that game.
Cover zero. Yes.
Yeah, we go on to win that game. Who's to say that we don't go to another Super Bowl, right?
Ouch, yes.
So I don't like going back and saying, see, I told you he should have retired then. I don't like being the naysayer and I told you so kind of guy. I leave that to Jay Stoggs. Jay Stoggs is the I told you so guy. But
yes, he is.
I believe Tom did what he thought was right for him. And that's why I think he gave us 3 years. Now, we can all look back at it and say, oh, man, he won the Super Bowl. He should have retired then and went out on top. Second year was okay. And then, oh, my God, he got just humiliated against the Dallas Cowboys at home in a wild card game. And, I mean, but if he wins the game, we're saying something different and talking a different story. So, Tom did what Tom wanted to do. And, like, I know firsthand, this game most of the time never really ends the way you want it to. Very few get to go out on their own terms. Tom Brady was a guy that was actually able to say, you know what? It's time now. Whether it was a year too late or not, it doesn't matter. He was able to go out on his terms, and that's unheard of in this game of football. It doesn't happen like that.
Sorry, James. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. I got a comment over here. No, I got you. And I agree. The thing is that the fact that with the Rams game, they came a zero cover, literally away from covering Cooper Kupp and getting back to possibly another Super Bowl. And then, of course, anything goes. But this next question, I'm going to bring it in here right now because Corey Brown actually says, Rich McKay, Ring of Honor. And the reason why I bring that and Rich McKay was the GM, of course, when we drafted you in 98. Now, you knew Rich McKay hands-on. Tell us about Rich McKay a little bit there, Mr. James Canada.
I mean, first and foremost, that whole scouting department was full of guys that had chances to become other guys that became general managers in this in the league. Rich was a straight up front guy. Never pulled no punches. Told people how it was. At least that's how he was with dealing with me. So I always felt like I knew where I stood with the Buccaneers, where they were coming from, and Rich meant a lot to this franchise. It's funny because I know Falcons fans who hate him now. You know what I mean? But they loved him when he first got. I mean,
oh yeah.
When you have that wave and that roller coaster of good and bad seasons, people's feelings are going to fluctuate to how they really feel about you.
Yes.
If Rich McKay was inducted into the Ring of Honor, I wouldn't be mad. I mean, how do you get mad at that? You know what I mean? Like,
no, not at all.
How do you go like he never should have been in there? Hell, 2 of the coaches that he employed are in there.
Bingo. And so let's transition now. Great point. You made a post. And because we had to go. This is what the entire crux of the entire show was. Of course, I'm joined again by Big Game Sports Buzz host James Canada, former Buccaneer, just a great guy, Coach Canada, I should say. When Tom Brady, he's the greatest of all time. So the fact, and I'm watching. We just went through the greatest game, right? The 2 weeks or the week long of every Super Bowl ever played, and there's so many from 2001 up to 2020 that Tom Brady was playing in. Yep. And I mean, you realize how fortunate. How fantastic it was to have that experience because he came in here, he took a team that was built by Jason Light, that was ready for a leader, and he led it. But a lot of people, when he walked out here, they're like, well, Mayor Castor, not only did she kick him out of the park back during COVID, but now she should give him the key to the city. And, somebody said in when the creamsicles came out, they said Tom should be a captain, an honorary captain at the game against Detroit so he can wear the number 12, which I kind of took offense with, and not in a bad way. I wouldn't have a problem with it, but Doug Williams is number 12, and even Trent Dilfer was number 12.
Right.
So I was like, look, it's not that I would be mad that Tom may buy a 12 jersey because he may own one already because it's a cool look, but I don't think the Buccaneers or the fans need to see him at the stadium. But you pose about the Ring of Honor, and I don't mean to say we're not saying that the cat couldn't find his way into the Ring of Honor, but you posed the question, James. What was the question you posed as far as Tom Brady and the Buccaneers Ring of Honor?
It basically came down to, does Tom Brady belong in the Buccaneers Ring of Honor?
Yes.
And, it goes back, and I saw a bunch of different posts, Ray, and I know you and I had a brief conversation, prior to him announcing his retirement. And Peter Blake, Sports Web had a great comment on my post saying, well, if you look at what he did statistically for the Buccaneers, broke these different records, holds these different records, sure, he deserves to be in there. And not to say that he doesn't deserve maybe one day to get in there, but at the same time, at the end of the day, when you look at it, when most people remember Tom Brady, they're not going to remember Tom Brady, the Buccaneer. They're going to remember Tom Brady as a New England Patriot with 6 Super Bowl rings in New England?
7 in New England. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you're right.
6 in New England.
Yes.
One in Tampa.
Yes.
Now, anyone would, if I came out and said Tom Brady didn't change the face of the franchise, I would be a fool and an idiot, and that's not what I said. So,
right.
I mean, I really tell everybody, because I hate when people comment on a video, yet I can tell you didn't watch it by everything your comment said, and that's why I was like, hey. And I have people go like, well, you got
heat for that? You got a lot of heat for that post?
I got some people that said a couple different things. Like, that's a dumb question. Like, I'm like, did you watch? I mean, did you really watch it and listen to what I said? Tom Brady changed the face of the Buccaneers at a point in time after having Jameis Winston and all the jokes of the 30 for 30 for the 30 interceptions that he threw and everything else.
Yes.
Looks like, we had the defense built up great, but just couldn't go over the hump on offense, and that all this great talent was going to be wasted. Lo and behold, out of nowhere, Tom Brady shows up. We win a Super Bowl. It's oh my God, it's a script written from Hollywood. Like, you couldn't get any better than what it was, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But I can't believe you got heat for that. And here's the reason why is because, and I'm not saying somewhere down the road, but we've talked about Ricky Bell and James Wilder. We've talked about Simeon Rice, who you played with. We've talked about players that aren't yet in there.
Hardy Nickerson's not in there.
Which is unbelievable. You talk about, I would pose in 1993 when the Buccaneers signed Hardy Nickerson as a free agent out of Pittsburgh. He changed the Buccaneers culture more for where we were at that point. And that's more near the time, James, when you played for Buccaneers than even Tom Brady did during COVID 2020 with a team Jason Light had put together. And I'm not putting down what Tom Brady did, but the fact that Hardy Nickerson's not in that Ring of Honor, that's why I love the fact that you posed that question. We're not sitting here saying we think he should or shouldn't be in there, but we're saying if the Ring of Honor is the Ring of Honor, let's put it where it needs to be. And that is, there are some dogs that deserve to be in there every bit as much as and before you rush a Tom Brady in. And at the end of the day also, doesn't it feel like it's New England's time. New England Patriots fans, they need to do their victory lap. Tom needs to go there and get the love. They're going to retire the number 12. If they don't, they're stupid.
I said it, Ray. I said
please,
it.
Tell me what you said.
I said, let Tom Brady go back to New England and get all his flowers. Let him do his farewell tour as a Patriot this year, fresh out the league.
Yes.
He's doing a lot of great things. He's talked to some NFL rookies. He's doing camps. He's doing all these other things, helping out young players. Let him go get the love from New England that he wasn't really able to get because he hadn't been there for the past 3 seasons.
Yes.
The man is a Patriot. Now, okay. I had 2 things. I had one thing posed to me, but think about this. Didn't Antonio Brown have an impact on our team as well?
Yes, he did.
So are you trying to tell me Antonio Brown should be in the Ring of Honor?
Oh, no, he shouldn't. Well,
you're gonna laugh. And I know it's a little different. I understand that, Ray. It's different. Yes. I understand that. But it's like, come on, man. He deserves something. We know this, but to automatically go, man, he is definitely Buccaneers Ring of Honor before these other guys that we've talked about, that really laid down a foundation that were staples. I mean, James Wilder, really?
Really? I mean, I think that even I was looking back at a cat today. There's a cat. I'll tell you about a cat number. And I'm looking at somebody posed the question when the creamsicles came out yesterday. They're like, "What number would you buy?" Well, first of all, I'd have bought number 98 for Mr. James Canada, but they said I'm thinking Vita Vea, right? I'm like Vita Vea is just the most incredible player on this team, and what he's meant for this team, the anchor of the defensive line from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and right immediately in my mind, I went, wait, there's a former Buccaneer that wore number 50. There's a cat. We drafted Steve Wilson. Steve Wilson was a center that the Bucs drafted, played at Georgia. He was drafted by the team in 76, the year of our inception. He played here for 10 years, and he was part of that defensive or the offensive line in 1979 that had Doug Williams only sacked 12 times. Now, I would pose that the 12 times that Doug Williams did get sacked, they were pretty vicious, but the Buccaneers offensive line that 1979 worst of first year was rated, and they were selected and they were sold to the entire world as the best offensive line in the National Football League. That cat played 10 years on this offensive line at the position of center. And, you know, there's someone you could start going back through the history books, and you played with some cats that aren't even in the Ring of Honor that we could make an argument for. And so I don't think we're saying here that down the road, you know, if especially if Tom's working for Fox and he's doing a game here in 6 years, because, you know, the Bucs have what? Who's the Caleb Williams, a quarterback out of USC we're going to draft because we're going to finish the worst record in the National Football League in 2023.
Tanking for Caleb.
Tanking for Caleb. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? With this team, you talk about the wasted talent when Jameis Winston didn't wash out, but Tom Brady came in here. But the talent we have on this team, you're talking about Jamal Dean. You're talking about Antoine Winfield. You're talking about Carlton Davis. You go inside with Devin White and Levante David, and then you got Shaq coming back. I think Shaq's the wild card. Have you heard anything? I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but I haven't heard anything to the contrary that Shaq Barrett's not rehabbing nicely. Have you heard anything to the contrary that Shaq's not going to possibly be ready to go at the start of the season here in 2023?
I haven't heard anything, Ray.
Right?
I just know the last thing I saw on Shaq was the forearm tattoo sleeve that he got to pay tribute to his daughter.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things, and I say this, I said this before, and I'll say it again. My number one thing with Shaq is he'll be fine physically. He's an athlete. He's a world-class athlete. He knows how to rehab. He knows how to train. He has professionals around him to help him do that. My whole thing is I pray that his mental's fine. That's what it comes down to realistically, because I can't imagine, you know, losing a child and having to deal with that and then come in and do, you know, a job that's as stressful as it is to be, you know, one of the top players in the NFL. And, you know, people forget that players are human too sometimes. And that's to me, that's the part that, you know, we have to worry about with Shaq Barrett. I don't think we have to worry about his rehab. I think he's going to be fine from that standpoint. It just when it comes down to, you know, his mental capacity with what he and his wife and his family had to deal with this year.
I'll tell you what a terrible thing, of course, the loss of Shaq Barrett and his wife. They lost their daughter with a pool accident, and every year down here we push it, you know, get it. And so, and it was terrible. We heard that they're also expecting, but you're right. That's the one thing as far as we hope Shaq gets back with the knee. You know, and Bucs fans, we're, you know, and you know, James, because you were here, you know that we're not like other places where the fans can become, you know, really obsessive and like, you know, we're like more laid back. We understand. So we're hoping everything works out right. But I look at Shaq Barrett coming back with a Joe Tryon-Shoyinka now in his third season, and of course with, you know, Logan Hall in his second. And I'm trying to figure out again. You talked about the disconnect and putting that chip on that shoulder, but I saw the moves that Atlanta Falcons Arthur Smith did with hiring the defensive staff from the Saints to get the defense going. I know they got Drake London, they got Kyle Pitts. And I think Ritter is definitely going to be the guy. I mean, he played what 17. He was 17th year senior there at Cincinnati. I'm kidding, but I mean, they are definitely the team. Have you watched that new quarterback show that's on Netflix yet? Have you had a chance? Because I know you're a busy guy. Have you got into it yet, or have you know about it? Right?
It's not QB. Which one is it? It's not the QB1 the show, is it?
No, it's just quarterback, and it follows Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and of course Marcus Mariota with the Falcons there last season. It just started on Netflix. It started, and they put all 8 episodes on at midnight Wednesday, and I'm already in episode 4. But I look back and I'm like, wait, that Falcons team, Arthur Smith, what they're doing there, what Rich McKay and those Falcons, they do have them on the cusp of getting a lot better. And of course, Frank Reich and the Panthers now, and of course, whatever's going on with Dennis Allen and those Saints. The NFC South, it isn't a pushover division, but I still think the Buccaneers are competitive in this division in 2023.
Well, I think our defense helps make us competitive, and that's
Yes.
the thing. And what everybody has to forget, every division has peaks and valleys.
Yes.
It's inevitable with free agency, with guys, as they like to say now, chasing the bag, as teams cutting players because they don't want to pay them a certain amount of money when they get to the back end of that contract. You're going to have peaks and valleys and have to rely on youth at some point in time. Because it wasn't that long ago that the Falcons went to the Super Bowl and blew it, right?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And then they fell off, and then they make some great moves, and they still have some other pieces in place, and they probably can come in to be a contender this year. You know, the Saints went out and tried to make some moves to see if it helped them on offense. We don't know. They still have probably one of the best defenses, and definitely in our division. So it happens like that. The league is made up to where it's very rare that you're going to have like a dominant run for like decades in the
Right.
NFL because of the way the salary cap is set up.
Well, let me ask you this. When those creamsicles come out on Wednesday and you see it, and of course you see Derek Brooks, you see Mike Allstott, again, both players who you played with here at Tampa Bay, James Canada,
Uh-huh.
and then they bring in Mike Evans, they bring in Chris Godwin, they got Levante, and you also bring in Antoine Winfield. You saw that marketing, that was the most beautiful thing. Now, James, when you came here in '98, you probably, and I didn't message you about this day. I was going to. You probably had heard the narrative about the creamsicles and how they were hated and how it was the most atrocious thing and how they were so. And of course, it was a great thing when we got those new uniforms. And I would pose it was a good thing. Everything has happened to this Buccaneers team uniform wise, but all of a sudden now with this one marketing campaign, I got guys on NFL Network, like all three analysts. I got people across the nation that are saying that these creamsicles may very well be the best throwback uniforms in the league. Have you
It's
heard that?
crazy.
And what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
You know what, Ray? It's crazy you asked me that because it is like a phenomenon. Like
Yes.
the promo video that was done
Yes.
was oh my god, it was
I cried.
like
I cried.
like I was ready to put a helmet on and go get somebody.
I know
I
you
was
were.
I was ready. You know what's funny because I remember being a young player, being in college when the uniforms transitioned and they did the the reveal of what
Yes.
the pewter and the red what it was going to look like, and I was like, oh my god, those are awesome. It's about time that the Buccaneers got rid of that weird creamsicle looking uniform with that funny dude on the helmet, right?
The winking pirate. Yes.
Right. But as time goes on and history,
Yes.
what it meant, not just for a team, but to a city,
Yes.
what getting the football franchise in Tampa meant to the city of Tampa and to see the evolution of what it was and what it's become now, like Brooks said throughout the promo, to pay homage to those that came before them. And that's
Yes.
really all it is. And that's the hat. That's why I didn't have my Big Game Sports Buzz hat because I thought I had my Buccaneer Bruce hat up here that I was going to put on and wear.
I saw it. Yeah. I
kind
saw
of
it
go
the other
like,
day.
yeah, pay tribute to what's going on. But I did. I don't know. I got hats everywhere. My wife goes, like, we put that hat up. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, baby.
Did you ever wear the throwbacks? Because James Canada,
that wasn't a thing. Like when I
know
came
it wasn't.
when I came into the league, it wasn't a really, really big thing to do throwbacks. Like every now and then, I think Detroit would do it when they took the lion off the helmet, and a couple other teams would do it. But it didn't start becoming, I think, more of a thing till after I finished playing, where you would start getting some of those throwback uniforms.
See, I think people, man, no one's ever hit me with this, but I think there might be at least one person out there that thinks that I'm being glub or I'm over the top on this. But you were one of my favorite players, and here's the reason why. And I've talked about this before. Because it's not just always about your John Lynch or your Warren Sapp or your Rondé Barber, who, by the way, it's like less than 20 days now, 25 days till the induction into the Hall of Fame, or the Derek Brooks. But number one, every time James Canada came onto the field, and I remember when we drafted you, you were just a dog. And I mean, but every time you came onto the field, there was not a drop off in defensive line production, but there was an uplift. There was a strengthening. And I don't know why I thought, but in my mind, I see a Bucko Bruce. I see a throwback, James. So James, I'm going to tell you right now. Here's what I'm going to do, just because not only number one, I love you, brother, but number one, we always hash it out. We always chop it up, and I appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and my throwback uniform is going to be a number 98 Canada
Wow.
because in my mind I've always seen it, so I don't know why I didn't. And I thought about it because it didn't become a thing here until like 2000 and maybe 3 or 4, maybe later, after we win a Super Bowl. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I didn't think that, but for some reason I picture you going out in the middle there, and I always say you were the pretty one. Warren Sapp had a little bit more get off, but
I appreciate that.
I see that 98, so that's my throwback. So when I get it, I'm going to get it made, and I'll show you, brother. And I'll tell you what, if I come into a couple of shekels, I'll send it out to you so you can have it, but I'm going to get it for me, brother.
There it is. Now, Ray, this is what's crazy to me, and I think back about this now. As I get older,
right?
I think not that I took it for granted, but I can really appreciate when I came to Tampa, my interactions with people, because Leroy Selman was one of the nicest and best people I ever met in my life. Yes. And when I say stopped and, out of the Buccaneers golf tournament one time, had to, introduce myself to him and had a chance to have him just talk and speak to me like he knew me for years.
Leroy Selman, yes.
Yeah, just met me for the first time. And then later on to go through the process, and I'm sitting down talking to my grandfather at the time. I was like, man, I had a chance to talk to Leroy Selman today. My grandfather's all, what? You talked to who? and in my mind, I was like, what? Yeah, I was like, Leroy Selman, best Buccaneers player of all time.
He's the athletic director at USF. I mean, he's still a Tampa Bay guy.
Yeah, and we're talking. He was like, man, do you know Leroy and his brother Lucius were some of the baddest D linemen ever in Oklahoma? And he just my grandfather went on like boom. And later on in life, I started realizing, like, man, I had a chance to meet, talk to, and interact with people that really changed the face of sports in different eras. And like I said, not that I didn't appreciate it when it was happening, it just, I just took it as that's what happened. That was just part of me being, in that organization, not realizing that, here it is, one of the best players ever played a game in the NFL Hall of Fame, and just an amazing person, man. It was amazing.
Let me tell you something. So I got to see him play from 76. I got to see Leroy. He'd go around. He would go around the corner, and as much as we'd see, and you could attest because you played next to Warren. As much as Sapp he had to know the snap count. You guys had to know the way you guys had to get off.
We had some secrets.
Oh, I'll bet you did. Can you share any of them?
Yeah, we had some tricks of the trade that Nine showed me a couple different things that I was like, oh, okay, that's a good one. But, honestly, Ray, just a couple quick tips so you can get back into your point and not totally get us off the subject.
Oh, please.
You could look at the quarterback's hands underneath center. A lot of quarterbacks sometimes, a lot of guys are in the shotgun now, so it's different keys that you read. But back in the day when they were under center, most of the time when that hand went up, they would push up on the center's boys to let them know that they were almost ready for the snap. And when that hand came back down, we get off the ball because we knew the snap was coming. Another thing, too, with some offensive linemen was the inside leg. Like I know for me, I could keep playing in that nose position, that cock nose that we played in that 4-3, that sometimes seeing that guard's knee flinch will help me hair trigger. And there's just different keys that you pick up on by watching film. But that hand, well, Sapp showed me how to look at the quarterback's hands getting under center a couple of different times. And then sometimes we pick up words or, different claps or, some quarterbacks had tendencies or habits to touch their leg if they're in shotgun before they put their hand up and get the snap. So when you see that hand touch his leg and it come back up, you key your get off. I mean, it's just different things like that you did.
Brother, coach, I'm going to be telling my son, because Tristan, my son, of course, he's up there in North Carolina with the family, but he's got a football camp he's going to Appalachia State there on the 26th next week. So he's really interested. And, of course, the kid's 14. He's 6'2". He goes 240. He's looking at offense and defensive line. So any tips that Coach Canada can give him, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, just reach out to me, man. I try to help as best I can. That's for sure.
Right. So, and you talked about Leroy Selman. That was one of the things about that marketing campaign when we saw it the day before yesterday, and they come out with the creamsicles. They were meeting at Leroy's. Of course, Leroy Selman's
Leroy's.
was a
Yeah.
restaurant down in here, and they're no longer around in here.
Yeah, it's not there
Um,
anymore. I
no,
loved that place when it was there too.
oh, and that it was just you could tell that the people put it together. They took into account. They took into the they asked some real fans, people that were there from day one. They said, what were some ideas? I'm sure there was some brainstorming, and they really did hit at the ballpark. And I tell you what, it was just fantastic. And I just can't wait for. Can we get you to come over here for that Detroit game maybe in October, maybe for that throwback game, James Canada?
I need to see what I can do because I know
Man.
I got a West Coast trip planned where I'm going out to Southern California to watch my Nevada Wolfpack play against the USC Trojans.
Yes.
But yeah, I need to figure out a weekend to try to get to Tampa and bring my son and my wife to a game, come to a game, and that would be awesome.
You let me know when you're coming. I'll make sure. I know you've made it once, but you were doing family stuff. But I'll make sure I let people know who's coming to town, and we want to give you some love. I think your son, your wife definitely knows, but I think your son probably knows how much you meant to us here and how much we love you, and and what you did for us. But what you meant, and of course, just what you're still doing now on the Big Game Sports Buzz, and coming in talking to a chap like me. Going back to that draft, I look at what Jason Light did, and I think he just fortified with the draft. Did you like the drafting of Servocia Dennis, right? And, of course, Kalijah Cansey. They're both players out of Pittsburgh. One the linebacker, one a defensive lineman, a dog up in the defensive line. Did you like that?
Because Servocia Dennis is supposed to be excuse my language, a badass at linebacker, and for where they got him late. But,
yes.
Right, the person I've been hearing a lot about is Yaya Diaby from Louisville, the third-round draft pick.
Yes.
I heard that he had a great mini camp. I heard that he was doing good at OTAs. I've heard so many good things about him, and he landed him in the third round. And then the seventh-round pick out of Eastern Michigan, is it Ramirez or I forget his last name? But no, I heard that he was having a decent, good OTAs as well. But I heard Yaya Diaby is like people like, hey, big game. When you see this boy, hey, baby, when you see him,
yes,
like you gonna be like, whoa, you gonna like it. And I was like that. There's like he's big, he's fast, and he's strong, and he can play that 3-4 defense the way they play it. Is that that 4-eye? And I was like, man, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, and I also know about Yaya Diaby, and of course that he's backing up Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, at least on the depth chart right now. I still think Joe Tryon. I want to work back to them because you've mentioned how last season he was just getting past the quarterback. But so what I've had a chance to do, because he's been one of my son's, Tristan's, favorite players over the last couple of years. Tristan had a chance to meet him last season, had a chance to to get a picture with him and all. I've watched that kid not only put on weight, but really grow into that role. And we always knew he had that length, right? He had that. I don't want to compare him to Simeon Rice, but he had that length coming out of Washington. But I knew that we always talked about he had to put a little bit of weight on, and we saw him do that. And I think that what we're going to see here in 2023 from that right side, I think we're going to see the fact that we're going to see the production. And I think that that's what the one thing I took out of this 2023 draft with Jason Light is, people would, in 2020 when they draft Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, 2021 are like, oh, he was a luxury pick. They just won a Super Bowl. And of course, when they take Logan Hall last season. But I think that what you're seeing here is Jason Light. He knows how to go out and get those Cody Mauchs. He knows how to find those Ali Marpettes. He knows how to build that offensive line. He'll drop a Mike Evans when he has to, right? His very first draft pick ever in team history as general manager. But I think he's building a defense that Todd Bowles is telling him he wants. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Buccaneers remain in 2023 one of the most dangerous teams in the National Football League.
Well, Ray, if you look at it, honestly, I'm not trying to be funny, and I know the Eagles lost a couple people, but look what the Eagles have done over the last couple seasons up front. And then look at the success they've had in games late, being able to rotate some of those defensive linemen. So I think, and not to say I'm not to be biased. No, I'm very biased because you need a good defensive line rotation to have success in the NFL, especially the way they pass the ball now. You have to keep guys fresh. You have to be able to keep guys getting after the quarterback. I just think that they went to fortify the defensive front, and they also helped with some pieces on the offensive line to help that depth. And you know, if Ryan, and I still don't care what anyone says, if Ryan Jensen doesn't get hurt the first day of practice last year,
Yes.
it's still a different season for us.
Yes. Because you
Yeah.
don't put Hainsey at center. You got him as a depth piece on the outside of the offensive line and Godecki and all. Instead of them having to be moving things around because you lost Marpet to retirement, you lost Kappa to free agency, and if you don't and think about it, and that really that's an old wound there, James. But yeah, it was literally like the first hour of camp that Jensen has that tweak on that knee, and you're like, oh, how bad is it? And of course, we saw what they did. I pose that if the Buccaneers would have had an offense in 2023 that wasn't struggling like they were, and they were struggling, and then you couple that with the real stuff that Tom was going through, that the Buccaneers defense would have been a lot more respected than they were, because going back to that Green Bay game, Green Bay turned the tables. They made our defense tired because our offense couldn't keep the Green Bay defense on the field. And James, from playing here in Tampa Bay as a defensive lineman and playing as a Buccaneer, that almost half of the strategy to playing down here in Tampa Bay is to make the other team's defense be on the field longer so they get tired.
Get them
right?
tired. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's big time.
That hurt. Brother, I you know what? I'm going to get off tonight. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate it. I'm going to think about a million things I want to talk to you because we've been trying to do this for a while. There was the wind, there was the audio, but James Canada, Big Game Sports Buzz, the Chop Shop. Love the merch. Tell everyone where they can find you. Thanks for joining me. With full screen on you, brother.
Hey, I appreciate it, Ray. Man, yeah, this is James Canada, former Buccaneers defensive tackle, a.k.a. Big Game James. And you can find me on the BGSE network on YouTube. And on Instagram is BGSE_network. You can also find me on Big Game Sports Buzz. That's on YouTube. On Twitter, it's at JCan97 or at BGSE network. And also working on Games Pewter Perspective. I do that during the falls where I drop all my Buccaneers takes and thoughts on that. And that's where I just dropped that Tom Brady Ring of Honor piece.
Yes.
And you can find that on the BGSE network. If you just put that in, or hashtag BGSE network or Pewter Perspective, you can find me like that as well.
Let me tell you something, because one of the things I most enjoy about doing what I do and being involved in the sports web and talking Buccaneer football or all Tampa Bay sports, to be honest, but is that I get a lot, I got a lot of good insights. I got a lot of people that are hitting me up, and I got a lot of in scoops, but your stuff, James, unbelievable. It's my first go-to. It's my first stop every morning and when I'm looking on my Instas, and I'm looking on my social media. Love it. And then when you hit that Tom Brady thing, that really got, because I'll be honest, I had thought, I was like, no, Tom doesn't wear the 12 creamsicle unless he just wants to be a fan showing up for a game, but there's no reason. But when you put that out there, again, we didn't say that Tom doesn't belong in there someday, but I love what we did there talking about the Ring of Honor. We said, look, there's some dogs, there's some Buccaneers, there's some players that aren't there yet.
I got one to ask you too when you're done. Want to
go ahead. Let me go right to you, please.
So someone reached out to me today and said, well, if you feel like that about Tom Brady, how do you feel about Bruce Arians being in the Ring of Honor? And I was like, you know what? That's a very good question. And here's my answer to you. It was premature, if you ask me. If I have to compare it,
yes,
it's a little premature. Because now, to me, you put Bruce Arians in on the same basis that you could put Tom Brady in because he won a championship, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the thing is, one can pose. It was 100-year pandemic. Stuff was crazy. Of course, Bruce retires and then Todd takes over.
Right.
But I think they set a precedent there because, as Christopher O'Reilly said, maybe a Rich McKay or maybe a Simeon Rice or a Ricky Bell or a James Wilder or a Harding Nickerson. I think the moment you start just popping everybody in, I mean, as much as Mike Evans belongs in a Ring of Honor, maybe Mike is the one guy who the year he retires, he's in there because, but you start setting that precedent, you start kind of chipping away at the strength of the very integrity of a Ring of Honor. It's like, no,
right.
Because we have memories. We have so many memories. We have many memories, but the Ring of Honor, to get there, it's not just like, hey, so-and-so was here, we won a Super Bowl, they just retired. He was a mediocre guy, but we loved him. Throw him in there. It's like it starts to chip away at the integrity of that strength.
Yeah, that's like saying, oh, man, when James was here and we did this, let's put him in. I know my role as a player, and I know what I deserve and don't deserve. And I think players understand that as well. And so do coaches and so do general managers when you start
Yeah.
breaking down who you put in the Ring of Honor. So, like I said, this is my thing. Not to say that Bruce Arians doesn't deserve it, but to get in where he is now that fast, had only been retired, what, 1 year? Nah, to
Yeah.
me, not a mistake that he's in there, mistake
Right.
that he's in there as early as it was. And that might not sit well with a lot of Buccaneer fans. That's okay. This is my opinion, and you have yours.
That's what we do. And I'll tell you what. I'll be honest. When they put Bruce Arians in there real fast, I was like, maybe it was because of health. Maybe they knew something we didn't know. I
Oh,
mean, because he had some
oh,
health stuff, right? The reason
right.
why he retired from the Cardinals initially back in 2017. But
True,
of
true.
course now he's still with the team. I think we're still up. Tom Moore, offensive guy, 84
Man,
years old, still doing it.
Tom Moore he was offensive coordinator in Indianapolis when I was there.
Right? Back in 2002. I
Yeah.
mean, and he
And
was, let's be honest, he was an old guy back then,
yeah,
right?
Tom Moore was old. This Ray, this is when I know stuff is funny. I looked up one day and I was like, is that Tom Moore on the sideline? I had to pull my phone out and go to the coaching roster when they hired. I was like, damn, I said he won't quit. I think the day Tom Morrison, not trying to be funny, the day that he's done coaching is probably the day he's gonna leave this earth. I mean, that man is all about football. He's great at it too. He's a great
Yes.
football mind. That's for damn
Yes.
sure. But yeah, that's. But I just had to pose you that before I got out of here because
I'm glad you did because I
it
didn't.
was presented to me earlier on. Someone commented on my YouTube post, and I do my best to interact and check the posts of
Yes.
everyone when they leave me a message, and I go on and check it and respond whether it's good or bad. If I don't like what you say, it's okay. I'm never mad at anyone else's opinion. This is my whole
Yes.
thing.
Well,
You
that's
know,
why we do what we do. We're trying to stimulate opinion. I want to
yeah,
know what you think because
yeah.
I hope you don't agree with me because the fact that we don't agree makes for better conversation.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those super fans where it's just like, well, yes, it is because I like this team. No, it's not like that. And I say that on a lot of my posts. Like, oh, that's a very good point. You said that a lot better than anyone else said it so far today. I appreciate that, but this is what I think. And it's like, oh, that makes sense too. Yeah. So, like I said, people, anytime you go see content posted on anyone's page, please watch it and read it before you comment on it.
Yo, James Canada, Big Game Sports Buzz, Chop Shop. Thanks for joining me, former Buccaneer. But when I get the throwback, you can help me take that thing viral because I'm doing it, brother.
I got you, Ray. I
98,
appreciate you, man.
number 98 in your program, number 1 in your heart, James Canada, brother. Thanks for joining me. I hope we do this again sometime soon. I'm working on where I can go from, so I'm a little more able to actually we'll get more talking going on. But as always, brother, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ray. Have a good night, man.
You too. Talk to you later. James Canada, former Buccaneer, former Colt, just my guy. I want to get to these comments before I run out of battery. James talked about being that Buccaneer fan, and I posed that first question to James. I said, tell me, the Buccaneers Vegas odds, they got the Arizona Cardinals as number 1 at like plus 1650 to be the worst team in the National Football League, and they have the Bucs at second, ahead of the Houston Texans. So they've got the Buccaneers projected to be the 31st worst team in the National Football League, and I'm like, my first thought is I go back to 1982. I go back to Hugh Culverhouse not giving Doug Williams the contract that he not only deserved, he should have got. And every Buccaneer fan, too, a man and a woman here in Tampa Bay, I'll speak for him because God dang it, I know it's true. Damn it, I know it's true. Doug Williams was ran out of here and it was wrong. But even that following season, after we traded number 1 pick for Jack to throw in Simone Thompson, as a Buccaneers fan, and I was only 10. No, I was 12, 13 at the time. I'm aging myself. I made the excuse for why the Buccaneers could be good. Even as the Buccaneers go out and they try to sign, a Ferguson from the Buffalo Bills, who already had a ratty arm. Joe Ferguson. We're like, I'm going to figure out a way that the Buccaneers are going to win the NFC Central at the time, playing in the Central against the Vikings, the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions. I admit over the years, having been enough of a gilded fan to try to come up, I always work backwards. Okay, how can we win our division and how it's going to happen? But in 2023, with this defense, with this team ready to go, with the offensive line healthy, with the Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and even a Russell Gage, but with the tight ends and the depth we have now, I'm like, really? But I love what James Canada says there. I think we'll take that into camp as we start camp here in just over 11 days now in the Bucs report, the rookies report. Puts a chip on that shoulder. And I pose anytime you can put a chip on the shoulder of a team as talented as your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's a good thing. Let me get to the rest of these comments because I didn't get to them while I was talking to my boy James Canada. Tammy says, no, I missed that one. Of course, we were talking earlier of country music concert. She said she did see Gavin DeGraw and Colby Calais at the new Coachman Park, and it was great. The new Coachman Park. So the sound, right, Tammy? Oh, I love it. I got to get out there. Christopher Cole says, hi, Ray. Hey, Christopher Cole. Thanks for dropping in here, my friend. Ben Cornett, honored this evening. Ben says, how many pale ales is that for you now, Ray? Oh, man, I'm going to finish I only have a couple of, literally a sip left. I met a long line fisherman out here. His name, JP, said call him. JP was his initials for John Pass. Thought he was being my friend, and he hit me up, but he was a good guy. Corey Brown in here says, I don't think the Bucs playing for division or worst record. I think the Bucs playing for see what they have, and then players 2023-24 season. Yeah, Corey, I mean, like James Canada from the Big Game Sports Bus says, the chip on that shoulder. I think this team's got a lot of depth. I do see the Falcons improved. I do know Frank Reich and, of course, Bryce Young, they're going to be a better team than Panthers. And I know that those Saints are a pain in the neck every year for the Buccaneers. I see the South getting better. What I say is I don't see a Buccaneers team that should be the 31st worst in the league. It's just my own opinion, but opinions are like buttholes. Tim Haynes. Tim, good to see you, brother. Tim says, good evening, gents. Good evening, Tim. Great for chopping in here. Jesse Rashawn Lee says, and I say back to you, Jesse Rashawn Lee. Eric Riggs pops in here. Eric says, Tom Brady should join a Ring of Honor, but give it about 5 years. Probably the best thing that's been said the entire show. 100%, Eric. Does he belong in there? Well, hell yeah, we always want to be reminded of 55, our second championship, the fact that we had the greatest of all time. As much as I think now that Patrick Mahomes may be the most physically gifted quarterback of all time, the tools, I didn't know his father was a pitcher for the Mets. So now I start to realize the off-script throws that Patrick Mahomes throws. But Tom Brady, 199th, sixth round, the 7 Super Bowl rings, the career he put together, greatest of all time. If I see that again in my life, even if Patrick Mahomes balls out and wins 6 Super Bowls, he doesn't touch Tom. What Tom Brady did from where he came from Michigan, what was expected of him, greatest of all time. If I see that again in my lifetime, and I'm pretty long in the tooth, I'll be a very lucky man. 5 years, that's perfect, Eric. I think that's exactly right. Let me hit the comments. Oh. Eric also says, James Wilder needs to be in Ring of Honor. Why? Come on. I mean, and of course, as James posted, Hardy Nickerson, the cultural change. But don't forget, before Hardy Nickerson signed here as a free agent, nobody would even. Tampa Bay was the laughing stock of the league. Now, in 2020, Tampa Bay was a team that hadn't made the playoffs in like 20 years. Actually, it was 14. But in 90s, when Hardy Nickerson signs that free agent contract, he put the Buccaneers put that sign out that said, open for business. And that's when all of a sudden the creamsicle uniforms, that winking pirate Bucko Bruce, started to become pretty dominant because Hardy Nickerson, and we've talked about this with TJ Reeves, the Buck sideline guy, of course, and Peter Blake of the Sports Web. Hardy Nickerson taught Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and John Lynch how to watch film, how to get out there early. He set the example for this team early in the years of those 4 Hall of Fame careers. Of course, the fourth one being Rondé Barber in just 3 weeks now in the Hall of Fame game. Looking so forward to that. Hardy Nickerson should be in a Ring of Honor. I'm going to pose this right here on a Thursday night, a Tom Selleck edition. I call it the Magnum PI edition because I used to watch Magnum on Thursday nights. I call it 2020 because I was always up late watching 2020 on Thursday nights. If Tom Brady makes it to the Ring of Honor before Hardy Nickerson, it'll hurt. I'll be like, okay, I get it, but do I really? Hardy Nickerson, James Wilder, Ricky Bell, Simeon Rice. We can start talking about other players. Tom Brady deserves to be in there. I love what Eric said, 5 years. Peter Blake says, #highlight. Peter, good to see you, brother, my producer. Corey Brown says, Buck should pick Vincent Jackson, put Vincent Jackson in the Ring of Honor. Of course, Vincent Jackson, who, we just went through Mental Health Awareness Month. Of course, Vincent, we didn't realize he was going through the trials and tribulations that he took his own life. And, in retrospect, you always wish you could have looked back at that and went, man, I wish we'd have, because, maybe there were some signs, maybe some people saw the signs, but there was no way of knowing. But Vincent Jackson, wide receiver, when he comes here from the San Diego Chargers, he was a cultural change as well. I don't know if he's Ring of Honor worthy, but, he's definitely in the memories. Definitely some great memories of VJ as a wide receiver at your Buccaneers. Christopher Cole says, Hardy Hardware Nickerson. Christopher knows. Good to see you, brother. It looked like you were having a good time in that raft the other day, brother. I loved it. I love to see you having a good time in the pool there, Christopher. Adam Weiler says, Tom Brady and Doug Williams should go in a Ring of Honor. Well, Doug Williams is in a Ring of Honor and then retire number 12. Okay, so yeah, so if you were to put it in with Doug Williams, throw Trent Dilfer in too, but Trent doesn't get in the Ring of Honor. I think one of the I always forget the names of the brothers that, the one that's the coach now with the Carolina Panthers, quarterbacks coach. Cade McGowan. I think he wore number 12 too. I think there's been some other number 12s over the years. It's a comment. No, Adam, I get it. As long as you give that love to number 12, because I it's not just because I have a throwback number 12 Doug Williams jersey that I wore when Tom Brady was quarterback. I was like, hey, look, number 12. But Tom never played in those. To me, if you're going to wear the throwbacks, if we're going to recognize you as throwbacks, you don't just go out there to be an honorary captain in the throwback game because you were here last year and you're greatest of all time. I think less than what that would mean for the Buccaneer fans, it wouldn't be taken. I think it would be insulting to the Patriots fans because Tom's their guy. He's their guy. He came here. He gave his love. He was our guy for 3 years. He was great Patriots. DeAndre Hopkins could sign Panthers or Falcons. I hope not, but he could. Christopher Cole says we've got a good 5-man rotation at outside linebacker. Yeah, we do, brother. And at defensive line. I mean, we really do. Good show, guys. Christopher, thank you, brother. Jennifer Fall says, why are you standing in a parking lot, Peter? Well, first of all, I'm not Peter, Jennifer, but I know I was on Peter's page. One of my YouTube comments. I hope it came in my YouTube page. So I know that Fred, I knew you were one of my followers. Thank you, brother. And if you're catching the show for the first time, you want to see the next time it gets crazier. Next time we're having the clothing optional Cup of Ray. Follow me on my YouTube page because you'll get the show. Fred says, put Tom in a Ring of Honor the year he goes into Hall of Fame. 5 years. Good comment, Fred. Good comment. What else do we have here? Fred, you know something? Last comment of the night. And that was the best comment. I mean, the 5-year, what Eric said, but you said 5 year. And that would be 5 years as the Ring of Hall of Fame to go into the National Football League Hall of Fame. And if Tom can make it come by here, maybe he's the number one analyst at Fox. Maybe he's locking it down. Of course, maybe he's just, killing it at $37.5 million a year. And he's doing one of the Bucs games. Oh, hey, you're doing a November game. We're playing against, the Falcons who, we're division rivals. We're going for our, 8th consecutive NFC South division title the Buccaneers are. Tom, you're in town. Let's put you in a Ring of Honor. Let's do it. Love it, Fred. Comment of the night. Thanks for joining me. I got to get out of here, guys and girls, before I lose my battery. It's been a Cup of Ray out in front of the Brass Captain across the street from Saltwater Hippie. The vibe here in Madeira Beach is awesome. I am going to go take my shoes and socks off, dip my pigs over in the Gulf of Mexico, walk the beach. I might even grab a beer before I go over there, and then take a very long time before I drive home. This is a Cup of Ray. Hope you guys have a great evening, guys and girls, and I'll see you on the other side. Let me just cue this up. Please share the show. I'm trying to grow this thing. Thanks, James Canada from Big Game Sports Buzz, my guy. Former Buccaneer, but just a good friend. Have a great evening, everybody.